So my name is Ben Littlepage, and I'm joined by Dr. Samir Patel, and we are presenting Advising Through a Study Abroad Program. I serve as an associate professor and program coordinator here at Murray State University in the program Post-Secondary Education Administration.
What's up, everyone? I am Dr. Patel. I am an associate professor also at the Murray State University. I'm part of the counseling program here at the university, and I'm also the interim department chair. All right, so just to kind of give you all a little bit of background of how the study came to be, the study abroad program came to be. The journey really kicked off probably, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. Ben and I started having this discussion about, what could we do to help provide a study abroad experience for our graduate students. Ben and I come from different worlds, different professional worlds. Ben is an administrator, post-secondary education, and I come from the world of clinical mental health counseling. But when we put our heads together, the thing that we recognized between both of our programs, and probably all programs really, is the idea of education and wellness are trans-professional, if I could even use that word. I'm coining that word. If that word is not available in Webster's dictionary, I'm coining it. So these are trans-professional concepts. And so when we started talking about this experience of how do we infuse education and wellness in a study abroad experience, South Korea was brought to us, and when we started researching South Korea as a nation, it was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. South Korea is one of the most innovative countries in the world. They have provided a ton of investment with regards to education and research into the heart of the nation, which has paid dividends, and it's become the 13th largest economy and the 3rd largest economy in Asia. So 13th largest economy globally, 3rd largest economy in Asia. But above and beyond that, Korea ranks first globally with regards to their educational system. And so we were like, okay, this is going to provide our students with firsthand observation of how these practices of education and wellness transpire in this new area of the world. And so it was going to give our students a super diverse, super rich appreciation of these cultural practices. So the specific learning goals that we were trying to obtain from our students were several, but among them were that we wanted our students first and foremost to experience the common wellness practices that South Korea had to offer. But more importantly than just experiencing them, we wanted them to be able to compare and contrast what these concepts of wellness, the understanding of wellness from a Western European lens, which we're all used to, but then comparing and contrasting that to the Asian Pacific experiences of education and wellness. We wanted them to walk away with a deeper understanding of the various factors that play in terms of the resilience of individuals, the health of individuals, the overall wellness of individuals. We wanted our students to be able to assess how wellness was conceptualized at the middle school and secondary school levels. And then going into higher education, we wanted our students to be able to explore the various student support services that are offered at a post-secondary South Korean institution. And then finally, we wanted our students to be able to assess the difference in conducting needs assessments within an educational system, but also at a global level with regards to higher education. Essentially, how do these practices, what are the implications of these practices at in higher ed?
So the Discover Korea program has been a mutually beneficial partnership between Murray State University and Daegu University for a couple decades. And it has evolved over the time to be a staff support program, to be a academic affairs, study abroad related program. But when we were introduced with this partnership between the two universities, it had really grown dormant. And so Dr. Patel and I realized that here would be an excellent opportunity to get graduate students involved in the study abroad program. Simply, and if you think about it, there really aren't a lot of opportunities for graduate students, paraprofessionals, emerging practitioners to be able to go and develop this idea of cultural competency related specifically to the fields of counseling and higher education administration. And so while we were there, we were largely based out of Daegu, South Korea, but we had an opportunity to travel throughout the country, just exploring areas that were rich with social, spiritual, cognitive, various dimensions that you would define as wellness.
So we wanted to, so Ben and I, when we were talking about this, we wanted to, again, definitely hit the educational piece, definitely hit the wellness piece, but we wanted to make this experience for our advisees transformative. We want this to be life-changing, essentially. And as educators, I mean, we do this on a daily basis. We're trying to create these environments, these opportunities for new learning to occur. And you think way back when we were coming up and learning about learning, we were able to identify and read about and discover these various learning theories. And so I know for me, I don't know about for you all who are out there, but I know for me, sometimes that can get away from me. When I'm in the then I have my speaking points, I got my PowerPoint up there, and so I'm giving the information. And my hope is that they will capture this, that they will learn from it, that they will grow. But if we go back to these learning theories, the foundation of these learning theories is that we come in with some level of understanding of the world that's around us, right? And the role of the expert, the teacher, whatever other synonym that you want to throw in there, is to help increase their foundational learning experience to another level, right? And so that's the basis of education. But what transformative learning suggests is that the key to this development, to really to make that learning sticky, is to process the experience of the learning of it in and of itself, to really to bring that to the student's attention, that, hey, how did this learning happen? What type of meaning are you making from this learning? And so we were very intentional about this study abroad experience, infusing that experience within it.
As Dr. Patel had mentioned, there's a lot of different learning theories out there, but we recognize that Mezirow's transformative learning theory was very applicable to this study abroad program. Mezirow basically says that as a result of active learning, we go through a series of reflections. And active learning is really the catalyst for active learning is uncomfortable situations, or as Mezirow calls them, disorienting dilemmas. But through this process, we're able to understand the world and ourselves, and it allows for change to take place. In essence, what we do through transformative learning is we find meaning. And so Mezirow introduces phases of transformative learning. And it all starts with a disorienting dilemma. Now, a disorienting dilemma can be something small. So, for example, here at Murray State University, a disorienting dilemma may very well be a student moving into a dormitory or a residential hall for the first time, or having to live with someone else, cohabitating with a person that they don't know. It may be them enrolling in a very rigorous class where they didn't have to study before, but now they feel like they have to. That's a disorienting dilemma. And so if you think about it, college students go through these every day. multiple times throughout the day. And sometimes a disorienting dilemma can be acute, or it can be over the course of multiple days. But as a result of this, it starts this process of self-examining your emotions. I'm fearful now. What's going to happen? Or I'm really excited. I've just met someone who has a shared interest as I do. Maybe we can be friends. But they go through these range of emotions, these range of feelings. And then from that, they start to assess their assumptions of the world. Well, I came into college thinking this way, but now I realize that it's not so bad to think about this particular issue in a different way. And so they start to assess their assumptions. And then they recognize some level of discontent or content through this process, through this shared process. But as a result, it allows them to explore new roles, new relationships, new actions. So now I can if I study harder, or if I take notes, or if I meet with a group of people regularly, I'm more likely to do well in class. If my roommate and I discuss, hey, this is what you like, this is what we like, we establish boundaries, these new roles help us to live, cohabitate better. And so you start to plan a course of action based off of the examination, the assessment, the recognition, the exploration. You start to develop this new course of action. And as a result of this course of action, you're acquiring new knowledge. You're acquiring new skills that you desire to implement. You look for provisions in this new role. Is it okay for me to do this? Great. Or if it's not, maybe I can approach this course of action a different way. And then you start to build up some level of competency and self-confidence. I know that I can make good grades now. I'm going to continue. Matter of fact, not only am I going to continue to do what has worked for me, I'm going to improve on those. I have this new level of confidence. And then reintegrate into one's life this new perspective. I am confident. This is how I'm going to move forward with life again. We go through this transformative learning every day. And we don't draw it out through these 10 phases. It moves quite quickly through these 10 phases. But as advisors, we have to recognize that this is occurring in the lives of our students because it's occurring in our lives. And so when we see, as Dr. Patel mentioned, when we see students participating in learning and engagement activities, let's help them work through this. So you experienced this disorienting dilemma. How does it make you feel? How has it changed your assumptions? What did you learn from this? As advisors, we can do this, and we're in a capacity to do this regularly with our students.
Yeah, so that was the foundation of this particular study abroad program. We wanted to slow down the process, right? Because as Dr. Littlepage was saying, that sort of stuff happens instantaneously. We may not even recognize the emotions that we're having, and we just boom, blow right past that, and then it's on to the next thing. So we were very intentional about slowing the process down and then being able to draw that out, flesh it out, and then have that learning become part of who they are, become part of their understanding of their own experiences. So we recognize the importance of this sort of slowing down the process, if you will, and we wanted to connect them even prior to the plane taking off and heading over to South Korea. We wanted to connect with them months before the program even was initiated. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure that we were pouncing on this new knowledge, these new experiences while we were in Korea, and then summarizing the entire experiences at the end to really process everything that was that they experienced, that was transpired during the 10 days that we were in Korea. So that's how we chunked up this type of transformative learning.
So prior to departure, we recognized that everyone was going to have a shared disorienting dilemma. But even the anticipation of this study abroad program brought on transformative learning, the anticipation of this disorienting dilemma. So a couple months before we even departed, once we identified who was participating in this study abroad program, we approached advisees on the cognitive and social level. We described what this study abroad program was going to look like, why we were doing it, what was going to happen. And as a result of that new learning, it brought up a range of emotions. Some of the folks that we took never left the country. And so there was this fear, this anxiety that was taking place. Everyone was excited. The level and the range of excitement varied, but everyone was excited. There was a sense of optimism. I'm going to learn something that's going to help me to be a better professional and a better person. There was a concern about security. Once we recognized these emotions, we started to work through these emotions. Tell us what you're feeling. Why are you feeling this? What do you think would make you feel differently? And then we started to, again, a couple months before we left, we started to intentionally develop this cohesion within the group. So we started a group meet chat. We added everyone to it. We would send out a couple one-liners every once in a while. Hey, did you see this? Did you get a chance to look at this? Through email, we would send an article encouraging them to take a look at that. And then we also had a program orientation. What was beautiful about this, a couple months before we left, they stopped seeing themselves as individuals who are alone in this process and started to see themselves as a group. And that really started to transform the way they were going to look at this disorienting dilemma known as study abroad.
And then they were sharing with each other without any. Initially, Ben and I were providing these one-liners, as he was saying, these prompts or whatever. Then they just started talking to each other. Hey, did you? How are you guys packing? Or did you see this thing? Or did you see that thing? And they started taking it upon themselves to add whatever new insight, new information that they were experiencing from their end, on an individual level, and then sharing it with the group at the group level. So it was really interesting to see this cohesion start to take place. All right. So that was the prior to departure. After departure, landing in Korea, now what? Of course, we were there for 10 days, and every single day had an itinerary associated with it. So and to some level, we knew what we were going to be experiencing during the course of the day. However, we didn't necessarily have any idea of who was going to be at the door when we knocked on it, right? We didn't know what type of information that we were going to get. We knew what door we were supposed to go to, but we didn't know what was going to come after we opened that door. So those were the uncontrolled variables, right? So Ben and I were very intentional about controlling the stuff that we could control. And so that started out right from the jump with our morning routine. So we wanted to definitely implement some type of structure during the course of the time that we were there. And so it started off with the morning debriefings. So after breakfast, we would connect, and we would have, because we knew what the itinerary was. So we knew the entities, the organizations, the people that we were going to have conversations with, or the experiences that we were about to embark upon. So we had some understanding, but we wanted to again, going back to that foundational level of their understanding, their experience, their learning, we wanted them to be aware of where they were at in those moments. So we would highlight some specific things. Okay, so be aware of this, be mindful of this, recognize your emotions here, recognize your thoughts there. And so we had specific prompts or specific things that we wanted them to be aware of. And then during the course of the experiences, during the course of the day, we would just touch base with them. It wasn't anything formal. So the morning debriefings were formal. During the course of the day, like during lunch or as we're walking to our next event or whatever the case might be, or in the bus going to our next event, we would have these informal conversations. Again, just taking advantage of these opportunities, these new learning opportunities, these new disorienting dilemmas, and allowing allowing our advisees to be able to flesh these experiences out. The real cool thing was, though we were doing this intentionally, like the first day or two, afterwards we were able to kind of pull back, and because we were seeing our students do it themselves. And they started really taking an ownership of their own learning. And so again, that group cohesion, that mind melt, if you will, started happening. And it was fascinating to see how these students were just taking an ownership of these new experiences.
Absolutely. So here's a few examples. On the far left, you just see us during one of our morning briefing sessions. They're ready to go. They're ready to write. They're ready for us to give them prompts, things to recognize, things to be aware of. And here are a couple examples of Dr. Patel learning about Braille, as well as one of our students who had never studied abroad, but once they were exposed to new relationships, new roles, and new actions, they were comfortable in pursuing those. And even to the point where they wanted to start to develop some level of confidence and competency in doing that. And then here are just a few other examples with informal discussion. When we were sitting around meeting with a particular office at Daegu, they felt comfortable asking questions that were related directly to their responsibilities back here in the States. And it was great, because as they were involved in these informal discussions and formal discussions, Dr. Patel and I were able to pull back and enjoy the experience in a different way.
All right, so the day goes by, and again, now we've gotten back to our residencies for the evening. We've eaten dinner, and again, this is a time where Dr. Littlepage and I could again control some of the dynamics, and so taking advantage of that once more. Every evening we had a formal processing time where we would come together as a collective unit and talk about what transpired during the course of the day. We were really, again, intentional about this. We wanted our advisees to be able to talk about, okay, so what did I learn on an individual level? And I'm going to share that with the group. And even though this was happening informally during the course of the day, it wasn't necessarily an entire group type of experience. And so there are going to be people that didn't necessarily participate in this group, didn't participate in this group, didn't participate in that group. But here at the end of the night, we're all participating together. And so so we were able to share, like, this is what I learned about myself. This is new knowledge that I acquired. These were the feelings that I were having during the course of the day. And this is how I was able to navigate through those feelings. And then somebody else would share, and it was like a domino effect. Well, I'm glad you said that, because this is how I experienced it. And so we had this very live and rich dialogue that occurred within these group experiences. And that would help to facilitate new learning, reinforce the learning that transpired during the course of the day, but then also branch off into new learnings as these conversations unfolded. And then after that experience, we would go back to our respective rooms for the evening. And each evening, our advisees were encouraged to journal. So we would, Dr. Littlepage and I would provide them with a couple of prompts, but this was their opportunity just to reflect on their own development during the course of the day. And so not being part of a shared experience, but now kind of retreating back and thinking about, okay, so I just had this shared experience. How is this impacting me now in combination with everything else that I experienced during the course of the day? And so we wanted to address it at the group level, but also at the individual level.
We had some culminating projects at the end. If you were a counseling student, you had a culminating project. If you were a post-secondary ed student, you had a couple different culminating projects, depending on what class you were in. But ultimately, what we wanted to do was, with this assessment, this self-assessment, this recognizing assumptions, this exploration, what new course was going to take place in your life as a result of this transformative learning. And so, for example, with the post-secondary ed students, we had one class do a comparative analysis between Korea's higher education system and the American higher education system, which they were familiar with because they were studying it. And then we had another one, another group take a look at through all that they've learned, how can you help Korean students better orient and assimilate into a post-secondary ed institution here in the United States? And so they developed these projects, and it just applied the transformative learning that had taken place. And so once we got back, we noticed that our students wanted to continue to communicate through social media, which was great, and with one another, because they had a shared life experience.
Connected.
They connected. That's exactly right. And so as advisors, this program helped us out quite a bit in a few different ways. As faculty, it informed our teaching. In terms of advisors, we were more cognizant. Dr. Kell and I were a lot more cognizant about just our advisees in general, what learning and engagement experiences they were taking place. And we would inquire about those. How did this make you feel? What did you like about this? Were you content or discontent? How do you feel like this will change you as a person, as a professional going forward? So our conversations were much more rich with our advisees. And then in terms of the university, we were seen as international advocates for Murray State. In terms of the student, it informed their professional capacity. They recognized techniques and styles and approaches to better to better serve their role. They developed some level of multicultural competency as a result of this program. In class, they would often refer to this study abroad program through examples. And then it also enriched their personal interactions with other people that were different from themselves, because they had a new course of action and they were confident in that.
So in the end, as we're wrapping things up for this particular session, I again, going back to what Dr. Littlepage was saying at the start of the presentation, is that you don't necessarily have to be part of a study abroad experience to be part of the learning experience for these students who go abroad. The slowing down of the slowing down and fleshing out of the learning is the role that we play as advisors, as educators. Being able to connect with your students at such a level and really flesh those phases out. So talk to me about where you were prior to going into this experience. What feelings, what emotions did you experience while you were there? What learning came from having to process through, to navigate through those emotions? How are these new learnings going to inform you at a personal level and at a professional level in terms of the discipline that you're moving into? And so you can have these conversations even if you didn't participate in the learning abroad experience, and then perhaps even with students who haven't been abroad. I mean, these are things that should inform us as advisors through and through.
Absolutely. So we thank you for your time. We thank NACADA Region 4 and Region 7 for accepting our presentation. And we encourage you to email us if you'd like to continue this discussion. Earlier in this video, I believe it was the second slide we provided our emails for you. But it's been a pleasure to present to you today. And we do hope that this will improve or better yet, it will inform your advising practice.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you.